Greetings, dear friends. We are sincerely glad to welcome you again, and today we are going to talk with the esteemed Igor Mikhailovich Danilov
Greetings.
and Taya.
Greetings.
Igor Mikhailovich, in one of the videos you asked our viewers a question: what is the fundamental difference between Islam and Christianity? You also specified that this difference is very significant in the spiritual aspect and is of great importance for the spiritual world and for every true believer. If we summarize all the answers voiced by people, there turn out to be several options. One of the options is that the main difference is in the nature of God. That for Christianity, God is in three persons, three hypostases, while for Islam, God is in one person. Or the fact that Jesus is actually a prophet in Islam, while for Christians, he is the Son of God. There were also options related strictly to people's perception. They say, it seems to us that Christianity is sort of a more feminine religion by nature, and perhaps there is more mercy in it, while Islam is actually a more militant religion and is sort of masculine by nature. Yet still, the prevailing majority of answers are related to the topic of images. The answers were that there are no images in Islam, while Christianity has images and veneration of icons. So here is the following question: is that really the case? And to what extent are people close in their answers, in their options, to what you asked them?
As a matter of fact, our friends, let's say, responded to the outward aspect, while I was talking about the essence. Of course, no one answered anywhere near it. Yet I have one more question for you, friends. Tatiana has just said that in Christianity, Jesus Christ is perceived as the Son of God, while in Islam, as a prophet. But tell me, please, friends, those who know it, well, those who don't know, try to think. In your opinion, what is the difference between the Son of God and the prophet? Please answer. It will be interesting.
Oh, that's interesting, Igor Mikhailovich. You always bring up interesting puzzles and challenges for people.
No, these are absolutely not puzzles. For a believer, this is important. You see, the attitude is important.
But those who look into the essence...
Of course. It's a very important question. Why? Because it is divisive. We've just had an example.
Yes.
In Christianity, Jesus Christ is perceived as the Son of God, while in Islam, Jesus Christ is perceived as a prophet. That's why I asked this question. Regarding the difference between Christianity and Islam, I'll put it this way, the difference is huge, really huge, and it is essential. What did Jesus Christ bring when he came? What did Jesus Christ bring? Tell me, in your opinion.
Love and mercy.
Love, the true knowledge and mercy.
Perhaps some kind of patience.
Salvation.
Yes, salvation.
Of a human through love.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Whereas Muhammad brought here the true knowledge for the service to the spiritual world. That is, for the service to Allah. Service and salvation are different things. No. Again, there may be confusion in this aspect as well. There cannot be service to the spiritual world without personal salvation, but it is much more than just being saved. The teaching that the Prophet brought here, the Quran, is actually intended so that people who follow the Prophet himself would not only unite in a religious organization or, say, as his followers, would not only attain their own salvation, but so that they would also change this entire world. That was the purpose. It means, again, for all people.
In other words, if in Christianity one can rather trace some kind of spiritual egoism...
Quite right, yes, absolutely.
Meaning it is rather spiritual salvation for oneself, then in Islam it is precisely the service.
Well, it's a little bit militant, a little bit masculine, let's say, area. I mean the teaching brought here by the Prophet Muhammad. But it is precisely aimed at serving Allah, not just at attaining, let's say, life. Though this is also very significant. This is the essence of a human. He must save himself after the death of the physical body. He must gain true life and not just become a subpersonality or go to hell, whatever it is called. But in fact, since a human is here, he has a chance, right?
Great. By the way, in Islam it is also said that those believers who sit idle and have no hardships on the path of Allah are much, well, not sort of lower in their status, but they are inferior to those who fight
Of course.
on the path of Allah. Therefore,
And look,
the difference between them is tremendous, and they fight both with their property and their soul
certainly, by all possible means.
in all directions, by all possible means.
The question is, what do they fight for? My friends, what did the Prophet call people to fight for? What did Allah, through Jabrail and the Prophet, the best of people, instruct us to fight for? For what? Against whom? That's the main point. A simple question.
A huge responsibility lies with the Ummah, of course.
Right.
Yes, a huge responsibility. It is huge because it isn't just responsibility for oneself. What you just said, such an understanding has arisen that the responsibility is not only for saving oneself,
Right.
but also in service, as it turns out.
Right.
Meaning to defeat shaitan in oneself and help people.
And here is
Therefore,
actually the answer. Against whom? Against shaitan. Against shaitan in each of us. Against the shaitan that reigns in this world. Right? So this is exactly the service itself, to oppose humanity's strongest enemy, and in fact the only enemy of humanity, shaitan.
In particular, most importantly, the Prophet said that people from his Ummah would have to come forward in the end times.
right.
Actually, it was intended for the end times. We touch upon a big and serious topic, of course.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's talk. Moreover, Taisia is with us today. If any of our friends do not know, she's an Orientalist and Arabist, and a person who studied the Quran and the Sunnah in detail. So, it will be interesting to talk. At least she will.
Especially since there is something to talk about. There is a lot.
Yes, at least she won't let us make a mistake, because she knows it in detail, you know. There are scribes, right? So...
But not Pharisees.
Right, not Pharisees, but scribes.
In a good sense of the word, of course.
In a good, proper sense of the word.
Right. She's a person who also has the keys. That's what is most important. When people have keys in the world,
You know, there are...
you see those grains and separate them from the chaff.
Absolutely right. Owing to those keys, she sees in a different way. I mean, she sees what people who are inside a religion
People inside the religion
do not notice. Generally speaking, it's impossible to study anything, including a religion, one's own religion, while being inside it. That's true after all. In order to study something, some system, you should get out of it, or look at it impartially. That's when it becomes clear. But as long as we are in it, as long as we are in the millstones of the system that formed, let's say, this religious organization, we are a part of it, and it is very difficult for us to see those substitutions and changes which were introduced by people. It is very difficult to see that truth which Allah has really conveyed to people. Why is it difficult? Well, let's just say that without a spiritual experience, that's true. It is very hard to distinguish shaitan in your head from images that have been imposed on you by that very shaitan himself. And it is even harder to find the road to Allah within yourself, because there is no external road to Him.
Yes.
It is only inside.
Through the center.
Right, and only inside himself can a person pass into this point and become the point in this circle, right?
Yes.
We had a video on this subject, we discussed it. So everything is not that simple, is it?
Yes.
But we certainly touch upon the subject. We apologize, friends, if, God forbid, we touch on something offensive to you. We didn't mean it, honestly. Let's use sources that are absolutely open and accessible to people, okay?
Of course.
Right, and our conclusions are merely our conclusions. If you disagree with them, if demons in your heads are against and have covered your ears, that's your choice. Do not listen to us, right? So what do we start with in such a case?
What do we start with?
With responsibility, perhaps.
With responsibility.
That lies on the entire Ummah, on all followers of the Prophet.
On the entire Ummah. May I ask a question here?
Of course.
What is the translation of the word Ummah? According to my perception, Ummah is the whole community that followed the Prophet Muhammad.
Yes.
It is his community, it is his people who are devoted and faithful to him, who really aspire to get to know the spiritual world,
The community of
who
Muslims
love Allah and respect the Prophet.
who follow the Prophet.
Am I right, no?
You are.
Of course, you're right.
Right, yet what is the translation?
Ummah. Well, one of the roots of this word is the word mom, mother.
One of the roots is mother, and what is the second one?
Oh, as far as I remember, there are even some Jewish roots there, right?
It's a Semitic word, isn't it? And what does it mean?
In general, before Judaism, it actually relates to the cities of Mesopotamia, but in general, it means a community.
Yes, there was such a city.
Yes, as far as I remember, it actually means a tribe, a community.
A tribe and a community. That's right. So do I understand it correctly?
You do.
Yes, of course.
So it's a community, a single community, with the root mother.
Yes. And regarding what Tatiana said, the issue of responsibility, the Prophet told his companions, he warned that we are the last among communities, but the first community to be accountable on the day of judgment.
Right.
Well, the responsibility is great. But, let's just actually touch upon the subject of the end times as well, because we understand perfectly well that the Prophet spoke about that very clearly.
May I say, after all, if we take the teaching that Prophet Muhammad himself brought here, it's a teaching intended for the end times.
It is.
He told how to make the world a better place and how to ensure that there would be no end times, just so that there would be no end times, and there would be a golden age for thousands of years. Indeed, thanks to the knowledge which the best among people brought here, the whole world should have changed a very long time ago. Nowadays, we should have been living in the creative society at the very least. And in fact, after such a period of time, we should have already been in the ideal society.
Right.
That was his dream. He really wanted it and spoke about it.
Even his mission here was to convey this point.
Yes, it was his mission. However, being a prophet, he understood very well that everything would change.
Yes.
That everything would change at the end of his lifetime. He talked about that, whereas after him, everything would change right away.
That's true.
For this very reason, knowing and understanding it, he counted on the last days, and the entire responsibility was supposed to be with the whole community, his community, during the end times. They were supposed to not allow the end times to come. That's what he talked about. But he also realized that shaitan is strong,
Yes.
that he would enter his friends, would bring liars and traitors to him, and that everything would be altered. He was aware of that, but he hoped, and I emphasize this point, he hoped that there would appear people in his community who are loyal to Allah and respectful to the Prophet himself.
Right.
That at the end of times, there would be that community which would be able, let's say, to resist what is coming and would not allow the end of times to come. But he also spoke about the end of times, about that very apocalypse, and he said what would be afterwards.
But Igor Mikhailovich, many people might say, okay, the end times, but who knows when they will come at all?
What do you mean, who knows? The Prophet clearly said that, and he named two significant events that took place during his lifetime. The first is that the Prophet was born, and the second is when his body died. And he said that between him and the apocalypse was like between two fingers.
Yes, they are that close.
Right. So there is almost no distance, isn't it so?
It is.
And all the signs that he mentioned are occurring. But the question is different. Let's put it simply, people have interfered, right? People have interfered who have introduced changes to what the Prophet himself was talking about. The Prophet said real things about the end times. But people at that time did not understand them. Only we can accept them, and we can understand them. And he spoke of our times. He called things by their proper names. Yes, he called things at that time for people to understand, but he talked about our time.
You know, Igor Mikhailovich, 1,390 years have passed since the Prophet's death. It is interesting that he said, I came in the afternoon.
May I correct you, Tatiana? After the death of his body, the Prophet is alive.
After the death of his body, right, Igor Mikhailovich? Thank
He
you.
will live forever.
1,390 years have passed since the death of his body, and he said, I came in the afternoon of humanity's existence, that is the time closest to sunset.
To sunset.
And he said, my Ummah will exist for more than 1,000 years, but no more than 1,500 years. And you understand that it is 1,390 years from the day of, let's say, the Prophet's departure to the spiritual world or home.
Home.
Yes, home. It's already, basically such a term on the verge. And what is most interesting is that people understand that these signs of the last hour, minor signs and the like, take place, they come true. And Taisia and I talked about the fact that people actually discuss this in their kitchens, right?
Yes, they discuss it in the kitchen and just talk among themselves. And they see that, for example, the desert is blooming, rivers start flowing in the desert, and they understand among themselves that these are really the signs of the Day of Judgment. But people sort of don't understand what to do, and they do not take this conversation outside.
They understand and know. They were simply weaned from speaking
They
up.
do not speak.
People were weaned from speaking up right after the Prophet had returned home. Immediately. That's the entire trouble. That's how we are arranged. Shaitan is strong. We fight him. We win. We have some small victories of ours. That's how it seems to us. But in fact, Shaitan even holds our tongues. So what makes us different, excuse me, from a horse in a harness? Nothing. We are restrained by a saddle, aren't we? And we cannot even control
Yes.
our tongue. In fact, this is really a problem.
Moreover, Igor Mikhailovich, it is purely kind of an inner feeling because when people don't know something, when they read information, they miss it. And it is the same with the signs, minor signs of the Day of Judgment. A lot of things are unclear and remain behind the scenes, but when you suddenly come across information that coincides and is put together like a jigsaw puzzle,
Yes.
your hair stands on end because of the fact that we live at this time. In particular, there is a mention that in the end times, the number of sudden deaths will increase.
Right.
And as of today,
That's what the Prophet talked about, my friends. Until the last day, when people died, it was always attributed to their heart or something else.
yes, cardiovascular diseases.
So they found a lot of explanations. Some even said that in the time of the Prophet, people didn't know about cardiovascular diseases, about stroke, and just called it a sudden death, right? There was no such thing, friends. The Prophet said that term for the first time. These are his words.
Yes.
And quite recently, for the first time, doctors also mentioned this. I mean, why? Has mortality increased or what?
Right. They don't know what to do about that because the number of sudden deaths is increasing.
Absolutely
It is
right.
literally the sudden adult death syndrome.
It was introduced just recently.
Yes, this very concept. And it happens locally. I mean, all over the world, but it is somehow tied to certain regions. In particular, the latest situation, they sound the alarm and become worried in Australia about the cause of this. Because absolutely healthy people, as autopsies shows, they're fine and everything is fine with their heart and all of their organs are in a wonderful
A
condition.
person is sort of simply turned
He's
off.
just turned off, so they don't understand what's going on, what this is related to, how to counteract it all, and whether it is possible to counteract it.
Before, it often took place during the last 10 to 15 years, but it happened more to children, whereas now it's adults. This is really true, and it's not happening locally, it is all over the world. It's just, I will tell you as someone who has been in healthcare for a long time, I'll answer this very simply. We cannot have anything without an explanation, you see? And pathologists were actually supposed to find a cause and identify it. If there is no cause, then you are not an expert. But who would want to not be an expert so as, well, how could a pathologist give a conclusion a person died because of a sudden death? It was incomprehensible, you see? That's why It has lately become more and more frequent,
Right.
and already to the extent that they start talking amongst themselves, behind closed doors.
The media also talk about this.
And again, how, yes, somewhere it had to come out and had to be mentioned, so medical doctors have said
It's
that.
just that when people don't know and cannot find the cause, they actually look for it in some kind of metaphysical plane, that maybe it's the influence of third forces, or maybe it's because people run out of prana so quickly
Exactly.
due to some circumstances, or as we've said,
The tank is leaking, right? A person has burned out, someone has put an evil eye on
or
him.
it is something emotional, he has burned out, or perhaps it is third forces that take away people's
Yes,
lives.
third forces too. This may also happen.
But how is it in actual fact? Why?
Climate, the cycle.
And how is that related?
It is definitely related. We are part of nature. Far and wide, when a person gets into, well, let's call it tension zones of electromagnetic waves, which our planet radiates. There is the so-called stationary, radiation. It is when an electromagnetic wave flows and it is stable.
Right.
And there is the migrating one. So when a person suddenly gets into such a zone, his life simply ends. Let me give you a simple comparison. I think it will be clear for many people. Everybody knows nowadays what an MRI machine is. You know, a magnetic resonance imaging machine. It's a big electromagnetic coil. So if we take your tablet, for example, put it in an MRI machine and turn it on, what will happen to your tablet? It will stop functioning. Why? Because the high voltage electromagnetic wave will simply destroy the ability to, in short, the brain will melt down.
It will format it.
Not just format it,
but
it will simply stop working. Its boards will burn out. So the same thing happens to a person when he gets into these zones. Actually, these zones appeared not so long ago. If we take past times, well, what past times? 20 years ago. 20 years ago, there were almost no such zones. As for even earlier time, that didn't exist at all. Why? Because we had a more or less stable electromagnetic field. However, after the late 1980s, when our core became destabilized, and its destabilization was again due to external impact, thus, as a result of these fluctuations, again they occur due to external impact, these so-called migrating waves emerge. Naturally, it's an unstable magnet. So naturally, these zones emerge. When they overlap, and if a person gets there, almost the same thing happens to him that will happen to your tablet in an MRI machine.
Wow.
In other words, a person is simply erased.
To be honest, I'm very impressed with this information, frankly speaking. I will explain why. Because when you read about these signs, they're a little bit scattered and isolated for you. While in this case, we come precisely to the root cause, that at the root there is the climate change which is happening to our planet, and that it is precisely the cause of
course.
one of the negative scenarios of events for our planet.
Well, these are indeed negative events. Just look.
That it is not just...
There have always been sort of pathogenic zones in the high-voltage electromagnetic field zones of the Earth, which were undesirable to visit, where people felt bad, and if they stayed there too long, they really died. This is exactly the cause, although if we look at it, this electromagnetic radiation is quite weak, while the main radiations, the main ones I emphasize, actually come from the poles. Then yes, it is not very good there, because there was a stronger radiation there and so on, but the climate there is actually such that no one lives there.
Indeed.
Whereas nowadays, since this instability has emerged,
Such a tendency, right?
it happens anywhere. It can happen anywhere. Therefore,
Absolutely no one is immune to
judging
that.
by the number of, let's say, people who actually die from this sudden death syndrome, there are really very many of them around the world. I would say that we are approaching not an epidemic, but even a pandemic. Well, we are approaching it little by little. We don't have that nowadays, friends. But we are approaching it little by little. Another problem is that it's impossible to shield from this phenomenon. This is really so. It doesn't matter what floor you are on, where you are located, if we are exposed to these, well, such a bad phenomenon happens to us.
However, there is a way out.
The way out is stabilization.
And stabilization.
There is no other way.
But we know through what this stabilization takes place.
We do.
Therefore, in Islam, it was clearly said that even if only one day of this perishable world remained, Allah would lengthen the day for Imam Mahdi to come.
So what? Will he come and do everything? If we take Islam, what is told there about Imam Mahdi by people? I emphasize, not by the Prophet, but by people. Well, he will never come.
Yet they wait for him because they know that salvation is in him, and he's coming.
He will never be in that image as they expect him to be. As for what the Prophet said, he told the truth. He spoke about the events that would happen, he said what had to be done. He was preparing his whole Ummah, all his followers precisely for that moment.
Yes, the community.
The whole community was supposed to be ready. He said that Allah would give you everything, wealth, courage and strength. All that was left to do was to follow the Prophet, to follow his path, right?
Yes.
Yes, to follow.
And then the Ummah would be fully and entirely ready to meet Mahdi. And eventually, he would reveal himself to them.
Yes.
But again, let's have a look regarding that very Mahdi. Hidden, not hidden, he will reveal himself only near the Kaaba, 313, 314 people. Whoever says what, as of today, Islam has existed for over 13 centuries. And out of all people, only 313, or 314. Whoever says what, just they and that's all? Those who will take the oath, who will recognize Mahdi.
Not many.
I'll put it simply, is this world worthy for Mahdi to come to them? Or for him to reveal himself to them? I doubt it. Again, from where should he come and to where? Why? The Prophet actually said something different.
He will be from my home.
Yes, from my home.
Yes, he will come from his home, yet what do the interpreters of those hadiths say?
They say that he's supposed to come from his family in the literal sense, meaning that
From where?
from his bloodline, that he must be a descendant of Ali, that he must be in Mecca, and then he must be in Medina.
And then he will be driven out of Medina,
Yes.
and he will come to Mecca. Do you understand? I mean, doesn't that remind you of anything?
In other words, they associate it with cities.
And again, where is he supposed to come from?
Yes.
Should he appear from Mecca or from Medina?
From the true home of the Prophet.
I have a simple question, my friends. It is really for Muslims who believe that Mahdi is supposed to come as the Prophet promised, and the Prophet always told the truth and the verity. So Mahdi is supposed to come, he is supposed to come from his home. From whose home? From the Prophet's home. And from Ali's home. Ali is one of the Prophet's closest associates who remained faithful to the end, faithful to Allah, and a follower of the Prophet. So the question is, from where was Mahdi supposed to come? From Medina or from Mecca?
He was supposed to come from the true home,
Whose home?
the home of the Prophet himself, the true home.
Where is the Prophet now, my friends? The question is for you. Is he now in Mecca or in Medina? Where is he now?
He's now in the spiritual world with Allah.
He's with Allah now. So from where? Where is his home? His home is now next to Allah. Allah's home is the Prophet's home. So where is Mahdi supposed to come from? These are simple things, you see, I mean,
Yes.
it's ridiculous not to understand them. But at the same time, people begin to assert something completely different. You know what I like the most? That people begin to explain what the Prophet meant.
Yes,
After all, the Prophet clearly said that there would be no more prophets.
right. He said that there will be neither apostles nor prophets or a new religion anymore.
That's true. And there cannot be, because he is the seal of all the prophets. No one else was visited, and this knowledge wasn't brought to anyone else into this world.
It is.
Isn't that so? So why did someone interpret? How can such a thing happen? I understand that shaitan urges people. He tells them, go and speak. They will listen to you, speak on behalf of the Prophet, tell what he meant, and people will listen. So it happens, and people do listen. Demons support demons, while people have demons in their heads. This is also true, and the Prophet spoke about it too.
Yes, he warned.
This is really so. The question is different. Why did nobody stop those who spoke against the Prophet, those interpreters? Why did nobody think that the Prophet was telling the truth. I mean, if I believe in Allah, I do believe in Him. I know that there is Allah. If I respect the Prophet, I do respect him. He's the best among people. If I follow the Prophet, how can I allow any of the same mortal, ordinary people to start interpreting what the Prophet meant
Interpreting his words.
according to their liking? Also, you know, I won't say that it surprised me. It's like they say, you know, we have such an expression as déjà vu, so it made me experience a déjà vu in terms of what happened to the Ummah after the Prophet himself had departed. The same thing that had happened to the followers of Jesus Christ. It is all so similar. It is so, you know, identical and stereotypical as for people's behavior. Yes, it's understandable that people are weak, no one says anything against, shaitan is strong. But if you believe, if you vow your love, your faith and your loyalty, and then it turns out that at the slightest threat, people simply forget him and keep silent, well, I have a simple question. Pardon me, the Prophet had just departed. There remained his followers, a mass of people who had been following him, fighting shoulder to shoulder with him, who had been supporting and praising him, who had vowed, I'm saying once again, before Allah in their devotion to the Prophet himself. And immediately a man came out in front of them and said, bring all your notes of what the Prophet said.
Yes, all the scrolls.
The hadiths, yes.
Right, they brought them. Yes, they didn't know what the scrolls were needed for, but they brought them, and he immediately burned them. Why was everyone silent? How can such a thing happen? They asked him, why are you doing this? He said, I forbid you. From now on, nobody is allowed to record. He burned the hadiths, but immediately gave them his own writings, which do not comply with what the Prophet said. Isn't that so? He created a distorted picture. Everything is completely different and everything is distorted. Yes, he left, let's say, key excerpts from the knowledge and from what the Prophet had said. But what was convenient for himself, he left that. People disagreed with him, but turned around and fell silent. How come? Yes, Ali disagreed to the end and others disagreed. Well, we know what that ended with. But where were the rest? How can such a thing happen? Or how can there be anything like that? A simple question. How many people were around Jesus Christ? How many of them were next to him? But excuse me, when he was crucified on the cross, where was everyone? Well, except his mother and Mary Magdalene, whom one of them, who later called himself an apostle, even the first apostle, of Christ himself, who repudiated him many times, and whom Jesus himself sent away, saying, go away, Cephas. He called him a stone. Didn't that happen? It did. As for Mary Magdalene, she is purity itself and an embodiment of love. She is the one whom Jesus Christ valued the most, and Peter called her a loose woman at the time when there were witnesses who knew the truth. She has existed under such an attached label for God knows how long. They have deigned to remove this label only recently. Why? Because there emerged too many, excuse me, artifacts, let's call them so, which were written by people in those times and retained the truth and which actually disproved Peter's words. Isn't that true?
It is.
How do people tolerate such things and why are they silent? Yes, I understand. We know lots of examples when tyrants come to power and you cannot say anything. We know it very well, believe me. When you can say nothing against tyranny, but why are we silent when it emerges? Yet again, we are talking about power, that's one thing.
Yes.
Well, here we are talking about life. Politics is one thing, never mind the politics. However, when God is taken away, it is frightening. Nevertheless, that's how it actually happened. You know, we have touched upon such a subject. It's really a tough subject. Why? Because, you know, if we face the truth as to what happened, only a few people today are ready to fulfill what the Prophet bequeathed, right?
But what about the rest?
But what about the rest? As for people who will not fulfill the will, I emphasize, bequeathed by the Prophet himself and the will of Allah, they are doomed. The Prophet mentioned this. Read it in the Quran and in the Hadiths.
In the Hadith.
The true Hadiths, and you will see it all for yourselves. Moreover, you've heard it many times. It's just that everyone considers himself a devotee. And regarding, again, there is a huge group of people in the Ummah who deny the Imam in general. Why? Because he was a hindrance. Do you know why many things were removed regarding Imam Mahdi's advent? Many things were altered, and they made sort of a fairy tale of it. Although they were certainly forced to keep some signs, those which were too well known. But many points were later added to the Hadith, allegedly from people who heard something from the Prophet himself. But we've just said that the scrolls were burned. They were burned by the men who usurped power and simply altered the Quran. He was only deceiving the Prophet, swearing allegiance to him and acceptance of Allah. But how many times did he himself bring the Torah to the Prophet?
More than once.
How many times did he kick him out?
The Prophet accused him.
Friends, there is historical evidence.
Yes.
These are not my words.
If we are to voice it, it was Umar ibn al-Khattab,
A highly respected
a highly respected man.
and authoritative person.
Yes. He was a pagan, but he was a lifelong friend of the Judeans. He learned from them and attended their classes in a synagogue. And he wanted to kill the Prophet. He even was going on a campaign to kill him.
This is a historical fact.
It is.
So he wanted to kill him when he was already close to him.
Yes.
After all, it wasn't when he didn't know the Prophet and just as an adherent of another religion, you know, or a competitor due to some religious understanding. He just wanted to remove the man he disliked. No. He wanted to kill him after he had sworn allegiance to the Prophet. My friends, doesn't this remind you of anything?
Yes. But suddenly, he adopted Islam and he was near the Prophet all the time. So here, of course, a question arises, why did the man apparently change so drastically? And there is the following hadith in this regard. He adopted Islam because of greedy motives, because he had heard from the Judeans that they had found in the Torah and other previous writings the indications of the existing events, including predictions about Muhammad and the results of his reign. The Judeans mentioned that Muhammad's authority would spread over the Arabs, just as Nebuchadnezzar's authority spread over the Israelites, and the victory over the Arabs would be like Nebuchadnezzar's victory over the Israelites, except that Nebuchadnezzar was a liar, while Muhammad is a prophet. Umar hurried to the Prophet to swear that there is no God but Allah, and took the oath out of greedy motives, wishing to obtain power when the Prophet's affairs would improve. When the Prophet's affairs improved, he and a group of hypocrites plotted to kill him, but Allah destroyed their plots.
This is really true. These are historical facts.
Yes. It turns out that he came to the Prophet, swore allegiance to him, and accepted Islam in front of all.
You know, in history, throughout his life, he was always trying to be near the Prophet.
Right.
He was always near him, trying to be of service, trying to be needed and indispensable. While the Prophet was a good man, not just good, but the best of the best. So seeing and knowing that he didn't kick him out, well...
Yes. Umar didn't hide the fact that he still attended the synagogue even though he was a Muslim. He continued.
After he converted to Islam, my friend.
Yes, he attended the synagogue and learned from them. And this is how Umar himself described it. I used to visit the Judeans on the days of their lessons, which took place in the synagogue, and they said to me, "Among your companions, there is no one more valuable to us than you, because you come to us." And this is interesting that they praised him as the most valuable person to them.
Right.
Why was he so valuable to them?
Do you know where the answer is? The answer is in the Quran, friends.
Yes.
Why Umar was so valuable to the Judeans? I'll give a simple example. How many times is the Prophet mentioned in the Quran?
The Prophet is mentioned only 5 times.
5 times. And how many times are Moses, Abraham, and all those written in the Torah mentioned?
Moses is mentioned 136 times, Abraham 69 times, and Noah 43 times.
Well, this is official information. And you know what else is interesting? Well, this is for those who think and understand. When there is a direct speech from the Prophet in the Quran,
The words of Jibril.
there is immediately a comparison with what Moses,
Abraham, yes.
Abraham, or someone else said. You know, such a downplaying situation.
Yes, it downplays.
Isn't that so?
Absolutely.
And do you know why? Because the Quran was actually created by this very fellow.
Yes, when the Prophet returned home, Abu Bakr became the Caliph, and Umar helped him in every way and was his advisor. Among other things,
Well, let's put it this way. Umar applied a lot of effort for Abu Bakr to become a caliph.
yes, of course, it was done by the suggestion of Umar. It was very beneficial to him that Abu Bakr would become the
Of
Caliph.
course, although it should have been Ali.
Ali.
And everyone knows that it should have been Ali, for he was the only one among the Prophet's circle who was really loyal to the Prophet Muhammad.
Yes,
But that's where politics began,
Also,
and the truth ended.
right.
so Abu Bakr became the Caliph, and Umar was an advisor to him. He pushed him in every way and convinced him that it was necessary to create a unified Quran, a unified text from the messenger.
Well, of course.
Abu Bakr didn't really want to do that, but Umar nevertheless.
And do you know why? Because the Prophet said, "All those who listen to
Yes,
me shall
listen.
pass on my words to others, and those to others again."
Yes,
It had to be that way. These are the words of the Prophet himself. He knew that when the text would be written, everything would change. The Quran would be changed when it would be written on paper, as soon as he departed.
yes, as soon as it was written, and it had been written for quite a long time, when Umar became the Caliph, people kept writing it, and already after his death, when Umar already died, codified the Quran.
His followers.
Yes, but at the same time, when Umar said to write the Quran, he forbade people to write down hadiths of the Prophet.
Right.
He not only burned them, that's what he said.
He destroyed those that had been written,
Yes.
and forbade those people who remembered to record hadith.
Yes.
He had his followers, his associates, his friends, so to say,
Yes.
who wrote them. Moreover, in such quantities that
Yes, in huge quantities. There is one story. Let's say Abu Huraira is considered one of the most famous conveyors of the hadiths, and only.
Yes.
sure, he wrote most of all.
Yes.
Right, he wrote 5,500 hadiths.
5,500 hadith. Meanwhile, for how long was he near the Prophet?
He adopted Islam 22 months before the Prophet's death.
22 months. Less than 2 years. And he wrote
5,500, that's only those that were found.
5,500 hadith.
Yes.
In other words, he would have to be, let's say, near the Prophet all the time. And the Prophet would have to tell him at least 8 hadith a day, right?
Yes, absolutely right.
I didn't violate the math, did I?
You surely didn't. Absolutely.
Or he would have to tell him on the weekends, for instance.
Yes, it's impressive.
It's impressive.
At the same time, from Imam Ali, who had actually been near the Prophet for 30 years, only 500 hadiths were recorded. Another interesting point about Abu Huraira is that he himself admitted that he was a composer of hadiths. I mean, he wasn't really ashamed.
You know, Satan mocks us. He tells us in our faces that he's a liar. He admits that.
Yes.
He's not afraid to admit that because we will believe him anyway. Do you know why? Because we are mean and greedy, because we are merely toys in his hands, and he is so sure of his power over us that he laughs and says it to our faces. So what?
Yes.
Has anything changed? This companion of that very Umar, he laughs and says that these hadiths are out of his sack, yet they are recognized as authentic,
Yes.
and they continue to teach that to people, putting this man on par with the Prophet himself.
Yes, absolutely right. Also, let's say Kabul Ahbar was a rabbi, a Jew, and he wasn't just, so to say, a rabbi and a Jew. He was the chief rabbi of the Arabian Peninsula. He was a big, shall we say, friend and associate of Umar. Umar often turned to him for advice, for help, for some science, and resorted to Kabbalistic divinations that Kabul Ahbar provided to him. Yet Kabul Ahbar is considered one of the most reputable commentators of the Quran. Although Kab had never seen the Prophet or heard his words, and he allegedly adopted Islam only after the Prophet's death.
Yes, and that says it all. He allegedly adopted Islam.
Right.
I'm saying again, for those who haven't heard, allegedly adopted Islam. Doesn't that remind you of anyone? How one of the people who established Christianity at sort of the level of statehood allegedly adopted Christianity right before he died.
Oh, regarding the level of statehood, that's interesting. After all, it turns out that it is also under Umar that religion and
It was
state...
made a state religion.
Yes, they merged them.
Yes, the first thing he immediately started doing was to merge the state
And the 5 pillars of Islam, was that also under Umar or not?
It was under Umar's son. Yes, the hadith that was conveyed by Umar's son.
Right.
Yes, so if we touch upon Abu Huraira, whom many people defend, then, for example, Kabul Ahbar said the following about him. I have not seen anyone who hasn't read the Torah more knowledgeable about it than Abu Huraira.
My friends, don't get us wrong, we are not against the Torah.
Yes,
We are not against Judaism or anything else, no friends.
of course.
This is merely our detached point of view, otherwise, you know, they will say that we blame Jews for interfering in the Quran or in Christianity or somewhere else. No, friends, we are just stating the fact. Islam is absolutely radically different from Judaism. What the Prophet talked about is different. Judaism was created God knows when, and it was designed for a consumerist format for a small group of people.
Yes.
People were indoctrinated there on how to behave, what to do. Well, let's be honest. A lot of things were allowed and excused. The main thing is to be faithful to themselves and their God. And that's it, then everything will be good for you and everything will be forgiven to you. So they were supposed to live according to special rules, everything was for them, and they were not supposed to pay attention to the world. However, time has passed. The time has come in which we now live. And the Prophet, being aware of this, knowingly began to take care of it. Therefore, what he brought here, what he gave to people, was intended for the whole world, for all people. It's about life. It's about the service to Allah. This is different. This is precisely opposed to people being, you know, concerned only with their own wealth or only with their own little group of people. No. He talked about the whole world. He said that Islam should be in the whole world. Everyone was supposed to know Allah. This is what he strove for. Every person was supposed to gain life, and the world was supposed to change. No power, no inequality of any kind was supposed to exist in this world. That's what he talked about. However, it happened as it happened. Again, interests of small groups. Their religion became an obstacle to the future of the entire humanity. I'm not accusing, I'm just saying how it actually happened at that time. This is really so. Everyone knows and sees it.
Yes.
Those who have touched upon history At least a little bit. Isn't that so?
Yes, absolutely right. And what you're saying, that the difference is very obvious because every time Umar brought the Torah to the Prophet, Umar did it repeatedly and in front of witnesses. The Prophet told him, "O people, verily, I have been given all the words in their endings, so be content with me. I came to you with that which is pure and clear, so do not go astray, and do not let those who have gone astray lead you astray." He publicly called him.
He warned.
Yes.
So many times, these men brought the Torah to him, but each time it was rejected by the Prophet, because its time had passed. One should think about all humanity, not just a small group of people. It is clear that according to their religion, they are obliged to look after a small group of people and their interests. According to their religion, they're supposed to rule over the whole world. But the new time says that people shouldn't have power over each other at all. That's what the Prophet spoke about. There is just one power, that of Allah, over everyone. Everyone must serve Him alone. However, shaitan is strong, and the problem is that people as personalities are weak, while shaitan is incredibly strong. But he is strong only because people endow him with this power. Because, this very servility, greed of ours, and all our negativity are shaitan's weapons. In other words, we are actually his weapons. That's the problem, and it is us who do it all. But being very well aware and knowing what this very fellow, Umar, was doing, who was altering the teaching of the Prophet himself, he had absolutely no respect for the Prophet. He was pretending the Prophet was sort of just a necessary tool in his hands. As long as the Prophet was there,
Yes.
The question is different, of course. I understand that some people will come up with a question of why the Prophet didn't drive him out. After all, he saw and knew. I will answer you, friends. I understand that there will be such a question. Why didn't Jesus Christ drive Peter out? Just answer. He actually knew who Peter was. Well, now, for many believers in Christianity, I don't want to offend you, I'm saying it once again, because some people will become indignant. What do you say about Peter? He is the founder of the church and so on. He is one of the first and the best apostles. I understand that you've been told this way. But look into history. Just look into history of how it was in reality. If you're Christians, who is more valuable to you? Jesus Christ, God, or a man who usurped power? Just face the truth. Why? Because both Jesus Christ and the Prophet Muhammad said, if you follow people, you will stay with people. They said, follow me, and you will gain life. If you follow people, you will stay with them. What did people choose? Do you know why? Because it is convenient. Because the demon in your head agrees with that. Because it supports another bigger demon. And that's all. They have turned the teaching into a convenient religion where a human doesn't have to do anything, where he's like a puppet, And that's it.
A passive listener.
And he's already definitely saved. After all, what did they begin to tell? Jesus Christ has taken everyone's sins onto himself, and you are already definitely saved. Why would he do that? Really, why?
Igor Mikhailovich, you also said, and in our previous videos we already discussed, that in the times of Jesus, people actually communicated. But when religion was already formed, people were passive listeners. And in the story of Caliph Umar, I remember one point that when there was the month of Ramadan and people were praying one night, he was passing by and saw someone praying alone while some people were praying in a group. So he said,
While others were sitting and discussing.
Yes, communication.
It was actually the same as in the time of the Prophet himself.
Right.
People formed a community, a circle where some prayed or tried practice, while others shared their experience. They were learning. They were striving with the same interest.
Yes.
But this is wrong, isn't it? Why? This way people...
It's wrong. They're somehow divided externally.
How to control them? Just that.
Right.
Everyone must be like soldiers in the army. There must be a rigid hierarchy, like in religion.
Yes. So this man said, why not unite them under one leader? And before that key which emerged in our videos, perhaps you wouldn't pay attention to this hadith.
That's logical, isn't
It's
it?
logical. Why not? Yes, let's unite everyone. What do we need this separation for?
Just look, from the perspective of logic, what does the demon in your head think? I mean, what does your consciousness tell you? When people engage in something, let's say, there is a group of people, let's take a small number of people, but everyone engages in their own. Some are discussing, others are practicing something. Well, this is sort of wrong, isn't it? Really, it's not order.
Yes.
Everything is not in place, whereas if...
Not disciplined.
Yes, whereas if one person reads, well, everyone else is silent and heeds his word. This is right.
Yes, they are united under one person.
Right, that's the priestly way. There is a priest, through him God himself allegedly broadcasts the truth which is written in a book, and the book is in the hands of everyone who's behind the priest, who knows it all by heart and repeats the same words day after day. And that's where they are to this day. That was the key point.
Yes.
Why? God is alive. And that's where, I would say as follows, it's a big bludgeon in Satan's wheel, in all religions. Jesus Christ said, God is alive. The Prophet Muhammad said, Allah is alive. That says it all, while Satan is dead, inevitably dead. All those dead disciplines call for repeating mechanical dead actions. And everyone who's alive inside feels that this is not what is needed, that what he is doing doesn't give him life. It doesn't fill him. It fills him with illusion, pride, self-conceit, hatred towards dissenters, and whatnot. But it doesn't fill him with love. It doesn't fill him with life, and doesn't give him powers, that kind of powers, which Prophet Muhammad himself had, so that the truth would flow through him. That's what is not given.
Right. But if we talk about it more, I beg your pardon, going back to this hadith, Caliph Umar suddenly liked what he did very much.
Of course.
Because the next time he saw this picture, he said, what a wonderful innovation. And it's not the only innovation of this kind, because the annual Hajj...
Yes. In the form we know it nowadays, counterclockwise, it was approved by Caliph Umar.
Of course it was him.
Moreover, he himself headed the annual ceremony of Hajj, leading people.
Yes, and when he came there, he was the first one to say, we will not go clockwise, look. That's how pagans walk. They have been walking this way there for a very long time. We will not walk as the Prophet walked, he was mistaken. We will walk counter, against the Prophet himself, and he led.
He led the Ummah, he led people counterclockwise.
Isn't that true, friends?
It is.
Recall what the Prophet said. His words, written in the Quran, and they haven't been altered, those are his genuine words.
Follow me and you'll be saved.
Do as I do.
Yes, do as I do, follow me.
He said, I brought you the Quran, the teaching, and my life as an example.
Right.
So follow me, and you'll be saved. So why did people not follow him, but went against him? And this is far from being the first case. These are stereotypical actions of the system. A simple example. Let's not go too far. Let's take Orthodox Christianity, okay? After all, in Orthodox Christianity, they used to walk around churches traditionally clockwise, although Catholics have been walking counterclockwise since long ago, yet Orthodox Christianity stood its ground for a very long time. However, one man with a big demon and a lot of inner desires appeared who wanted to become, whoever, the ecumenical patriarch, so that the whole universe would submit to him. And priests immediately came to him from Greece and said that certain things had to be changed. The first, and not the least important, was to lead the whole people not in the clockwise direction as they used to walk, but counterclockwise. Plus, many other things had to be changed, including the way of crossing oneself and a lot of other points. How did this story end? People went counterclockwise. Many were indignant.
Yes.
A split of the church took place. There were lots of confrontations. But who won? Who won in people? Truth or Satan? A simple question. Here's the answer for you. You actually see all of this for yourselves, and you yourselves know it all. Moreover, you yourselves walk this way. Yes, it is merely walking. It's of no importance, surely of no importance. Is it important whether we follow the Prophet or go against him? Is it important how the sun rises and sets? Or should everything be changed over? Would nothing change? A simple question. Something would change. Do you know what would change? We would be gone. And so it is every time. When the sun begins to rise from the other side.
You know, Igor Mikhailovich, when we understood how they actually allowed the knowledge to be distorted, it seemed to us that the matter was sort of successive, like Chinese whispers, that it was somehow distorted from mouth to mouth, drop by drop.
No, it's a purposeful action.
A purposeful action, yes.
It happens very quickly and purposefully. Many people may come up with a question, where were the others? Where was Ali after all? And so on. Let's start telling the truth, okay? First of all, this Ummah had a great support from those who had a lot of money, let's put it this way.
Yes.
Yes.
Plus, he had a lot of associates who were high-ranking among the Ummah, among the military, first and foremost, and he worked on that. While Ali was an open and honest man. Yes, he had people, he had support, but of a few people. As soon as indignation arose, I would put it this way. When confrontations started, people began to accuse Ummah. What are you doing? Why are you lying? People started talking about this, and do you know what happened? I'll tell you what happened. Ummah's friends brought the bodies of dead people who had died of plague. Fragments of their clothes and bodies were thrown among trading rows, and plague began, a terrible plague. It wasn't the first time that biological weapons had been used. But note, a lot of people died. However, he and his fellows didn't die for some reason. Although they attended to the sick, they showed off. There's no other way to put it. Excuse me for such slang words as showed off, but they really showed off. They played to the audience, saying that they go to the sick, they visit the sick, and Allah protects them, and so on. But the disease was terrible. How many people died from it?
A lot.
Almost 1/3 of the population.
Yes.
And right after that, there was a war, which Ummah started. There was no need or reason for it. It was an invasive war. He went not against pagans or anyone else, he just went to rob. He needed to kill even more people. But why? Because as soon as the wave of the plague subsided, questions immediately arose. However, the war stopped those questions, and the war was terrible and serious. After that war, small wars began.
Intestine wars, yes.
Being a commander, a leader, he gathered a big army, and internal wars began. He started destroying everyone who was against. Those very followers of Ali, and many others, those who knew the truth, those who followed the Prophet himself. It was brutal, but it was the truth. And how did it end afterwards? After the war, there was artificial, man-made famine that Ummah created. People started thinking about a piece of bread, about today, and they forgot. They forgot about faith, they forgot about everything because they prayed to him because he gave them bread. Look at how simple everything is. Doesn't this remind you of anything? Let's recall the times of Peter's and Paul's formation. Dig into history and see. Tell me, it is sort of such parallels. All this is unpleasant. Honestly, it's unpleasant. Why? Because it shows our human weakness, how weak we actually are. how mean we are, and how vile we are. And you know, a simple question, maybe the Prophet really was right when he described the end times and told us how everything would collapse and how everything would split. Yet being a prophet, he also gave people hope. Again, you know, the hope he gave, he had to do it, he's the prophet, and he hoped that there would be enough people among Muslims who would be loyal to Allah and faithful to Him, and in the last days of this world would make the right decision, would stop serving Satan, would kick shaitan out of themselves, and look honestly into each other's eyes, and would restore the Quran, restore the truth, and restore Islam throughout the world, would save this world. This is what he hoped for. This is the hope. This is the meaning of his existence. And if we look carefully, really carefully, many of his speeches were addressed to us, living today. To us, all of us are now the chosen ones, and it was addressed to us. He was saying to his listeners, you won't understand what I'm telling you now. It will be understood later. It will be understood by those who will live in the end times, and on whom it will depend whether this world remains as we know it, or will cease to exist. That's what the Prophet's heart ached for. He did not want us all to cease to exist.
Especially the last sermon of the Prophet Muhammad, where he said how important it is to carry even this sermon of his further, because only the last ones will understand it, to convey it to the last ones. And what was in the last sermon? Very important things were mentioned there. The value of life, that all people are equal.
The creative society, everything relating to the 8 foundations of the creative society.
That's right, yes.
I wanted to read it out. Learn that every Muslim is a brother to every Muslim, and that the Muslims constitute one brotherhood. Remember, one day you will appear before God and answer for your deeds. So beware, do not stray from the path of righteousness after I am gone. O people, no prophet or apostle will come after me, and no new faith will be born. Reason well, therefore, O people, and understand words which I convey to you. I leave behind me 2 things, the Quran and my example, and if you follow these, you will never go astray. All those who listen to me shall pass on my words to others, and those to others again, and it may be that the last ones understand my words better than those who listen to me directly. Be my witness, O God, that I have conveyed your message to your people.
Allah testified that the Prophet has conveyed it. But have we heard? After all, we are the last ones. Will we be able to understand his words? That's the point. This depends on each of us, friends.
There was also an interesting point. The Prophet was asked, who is the best in the purity of faith?
The important thing is that in his last sermon, the Prophet addressed people and those who listened to him not as all believers listen to me or all Muslims listen to me, but all people listen to me. Well, before that, he...
All people.
All people.
Right. He addressed absolutely everyone. And there is another interesting point regarding why people should pass it on to each other. There is a very interesting hadith in this regard. It is said that the Prophet, peace be upon him, asked his companions, which of the creatures are most amazing to you with their iman, meaning with the purity of their face? And they said, angels perhaps? The Prophet said, how can angels not believe when they are before their Lord? Then the companions said, prophets. And the Prophet said, how would they not believe when a revelation is sent down to them? The companions said, companions? And the Prophet said, how would you not believe when I am among you? And the companions asked, who is it then? And the Prophet said, the people who will be after you, who will find the scrolls, meaning the knowledge, and believe in what is written in them.
Ingrid Mikhailovich, in addition to what Taya has said, I would also like to read out one hadith where there are things that are unclear to a person who hears them for the first time and cannot understand these associations. The time will come when my sunnah will wear out as clothing on the body wears out, and the bad innovation will appear. The one who adheres to my sunnah will become like a stranger and be left alone, while the one who follows the innovation will find 50 friends or even more. So people once asked, "O Messenger of Allah, will there be anyone better after us?" And he said, "Of course. Will they see you, O Messenger of Allah? No. Will revelation come down to them? No. What will their situation be at that time? Their hearts will dissolve like salt in the water. How will they live at that time? Like worms inside the vinegar. How will they hold onto their religion? Like holding onto a burning ember in your hand. If you throw it away, it will die out. If you hold onto it, you will burn your hand." So these are the points regarding what it will be like for these people at the time they will live in. The first point is, what will their situation be at that time? Their hearts will dissolve like salt in the water. What does this mean?
To fill this world with meaning. Just imagine if we take salt out of the water, even of this world. What will happen to this world? Will it remain? It won't. And if we take salt out of the earth, would this world remain? No. Yet that's what Jesus Christ said.
Yes, you are the salt of the earth, he said about believers.
If we take salt and dissolve it in water, outwardly it doesn't differ in any way. It differs only by taste, but its taste becomes like the taste of our blood. Salt is a very important element for our health, for life in general.
A spoonful is enough to change the properties of this entire...
1 grain
Yes.
of salt is enough to change the properties of a whole glass. Isn't that so?
It is.
Thus, from life-giving water, it also becomes very useful for the body, because it's an electrolyte.
Precisely, a conductive substance.
Of course, certainly.
Igor Mikhailovich, okay, and what about this point? How will they live at that time? Like worms inside the vinegar?
Well, if in the first case people became, as you said, conductors of knowledge, they dissolved among people, giving them life and health, then in this case they themselves will be not in very good conditions. Like worms inside the vinegar, will carry out an experiment. Vinegar is corrosive.
An aggressive medium.
Absolutely right, they will be in an aggressive medium. Isn't that so? But again, this is a temporary phenomenon. You know, vinegar quickly decomposes and becomes water.
And to the question, how will they hold on to their religion? The answer was, like holding onto a burning ember in your hand. If you throw it away, it will die out. If you hold onto it, you will burn your hand.
Of course, if you throw it away, everything will die out, and it's extremely difficult to hold it. You have to put up with a lot. But do you know what else the whole meaning is in? It's an all right of friends. When friends would gather in a circle and take a burning ember and quickly pass it to each other. So when we quickly pass it to each other, that is, I give it to you and you take it from me and pass it to another person, when everything happens quickly, no one gets burned. But if you start holding it, or they don't take it from you, it starts burning your hand. Do you know where this right comes from?
No.
It's from an even older religion.
From Zoroastrianism?
From Zoroastrianism, right.
And regarding the fact that you mentioned that one should pass it very quickly, it's just that there is a very interesting hadith saying that one shouldn't envy people. However, there are two qualities in people that a person basically can envy in a good way, which serve as an example. The first one is those people to whom Allah has granted wisdom, who themselves act according to that wisdom and pass that wisdom to others. And the second one is when Allah has granted people, let's say, wealth, property, and so on, and they invest that wealth properly on the way to Allah. That's how it is said. Also, you know, Igor Mikhailovich, I remember one point that I would like to read out and share with our viewers. It's about whom Allah loves the most.
My friends, please tell me, whom does Allah love the most? Please answer. Do not listen to consciousness that will say definitely not you or definitely you. Look at this question more broadly. And now read it out.
Most likely the answer will be unexpected. I don't know if it will match for many people. Of all His slaves, Allah the Almighty loves most of all those who observe the sun and the moon, who cause Allah the Almighty to begin to love other slaves, and who awaken love for Allah in other people.
Right. And I'll put it this way, I also love you, Allatra people.
This feeling is very mutual.
It is.
Thank you.
Igor Mikhailovich, regarding the sun and the moon, there is a lot of information in Islam, and not without distortions. Let's put it this way. Actually, just like in the Hadiths and the Quran, there was a moment when a solar eclipse occurred shortly before the Prophet's death. It happened at the moment when his youngest son died, and naturally all the people were agitated. They started thinking that maybe this solar eclipse had something to do with it, that it was a bad sign. Then this common prayer of people took place. The Prophet Muhammad prayed for a very long time. Basically, when he came out, the solar eclipse was over. Afterwards, he addressed people and said the following: "Verily, the sun and the moon are among the signs of Allah. Both of these luminaries are overshadowed not because someone died or was born. When you see them both, recite the takbirs. Takbirs are glorification of Allah.
Of Allah.
And I would even say it is used as a sign of joy. Call upon Allah and give alms." He also said the following: "If you knew what I know, you would laugh little and would cry much." Did I convey that? The Prophet was well aware of what events
Are coming.
would take place and what scenarios of how events would develop are possible. When Imam Mahdi comes, there can be two scenarios. One scenario is if people say, "We don't need anyone from Muhammad's family."
Yes, if the ignorant among you say Allah doesn't need Muhammad's family, in that case, Mahdi will come out from hiding, and then he will come like a piercing shooting star and fill this world with justice. So here, a piercing shooting star.
That's the worst of the scenarios.
The Prophet said that
We don't need it.
Yes.
The Prophet said that if you do not accept Mahdi, it's the same as or equivalent to not accepting the Prophet. But there is another scenario.
Yes.
It's a scenario where people recognize Mahdi. In this case,
Thus, there are not two, but three scenarios. The Prophet spoke about three scenarios, but many people actually talk about two.
right.
The first scenario was just read out by Taya. That's the worst option.
The second scenario is one in which people recognize and accept Mahdi, and then it is said that Mahdi has triumphed over fear and knows no defeat. The earth will open before him its reaches, and his power will spread to the east and to the west. The Lord will reveal his religion to humankind through him, even though disbelievers may be averse to it. There will be no place left on earth that wouldn't be improved. So the part about improving.
But I disagree regarding power.
Yes.
He will return power to people.
Right. It is said in the Hadith that precisely people will rise up and create conditions
Of
for
course.
Mahdi to establish his state.
Well, precisely the alteration and loose interpretation of the Prophet's own words led to the fact that instead of Mahdi favoring that people will return power to themselves and the world will change, that part is true. But as for him seizing power and ruling over someone, that is false. The Prophet didn't say that. People made it up. Those who are preoccupied with power themselves, who would like to rule for 7, 9, or even better for 40 years,
Yes.
they were talking about themselves, about their own dreams and desires, but not about Mahdi.
Yes, indeed. And it is said, so how do I await Mahdi? And there is an interesting point here that there is an opinion that the best thing you can do before the advent of Mahdi is just to await him. Thus people interpret it precisely like this, that you should sit and do nothing while Mahdi will come and do everything.
On his own, right, without people's involvement.
He will come and do everything
Yes,
himself.
on his own. He will come and do everything
He will
himself.
change
but
everything, but he'll do it for you, right?
Yes,
For people.
the faithful waited and got it.
Yes, they waited and got it, most importantly. But wait a minute, what is a person's merit then? Does it mean the best thing one can do is to do nothing?
Right.
This is somehow
Yes, but if we look a little bit deeper, we can see that people are expected to be active, both in the spiritual sense and, let's say, externally, in their material actions. If we speak of what is external, it was said that the Ummah should be united as a single heart, as a single organism, ready to solve global tasks that would be set. Whereas if we speak of the spiritual, the following hadith is very, very touching. When Mahdi appears, Allah will cause such power of vision and hearing to be manifested in believers that Mahdi will call to the whole world from where he is with no postman involved, and they will hear and even see him.
And it is also very important how to recognize Mahdi.
That's really true. They will hear and see, but only some of them will recognize him. Why? Because Mahdi, I would actually attribute this to the other world. As a matter of fact, this should be seen not with earthly eyes, but with an inner, spiritual side. However, only those who really love Allah, who really serve Him, and who really love the Prophet and are faithful to Him, have the inner side. Those people, yes, they have spiritual vision too, so they will hear and see both Mahdi and his call, and much more. But again, people actually expect that a man with certain characteristics will come, do everything instead of them, defeat everyone, and will fight. In other words, they attribute a militant function to Mahdi, don't they?
They do.
That he's supposed to fight, he's supposed to conquer, he's supposed to take possessions from all the rich and give them to the poor.
In equal portions.
Thank God, not at an interest.
Usury is prohibited.
You see, not at an interest. Yes, in this aspect, they somehow restrained themselves when describing
They
it.
recalled the Prophet's farewell sermon, where he said not to do that.
Yes, they recalled
Usury,
that the Prophet had
right.
prohibited usury.
This point is very important because the Prophet always conveyed to his followers the two global ideas, as it seems to me. The first and most important one is that they should mature internally and spiritually.
That's right.
That they should develop this very inner spiritual vision so that at the moment when they live in the times when Imam Mahdi would come, they would be able to recognize him just by this criterion, by the criterion of spiritual vision. And the second very important point, which concerns the external life of every Muslim, is that they should be as one fist. They should be united. They should be such a single community as the Prophet dreamed of.
And do you know another most important thing that everybody misses? The Prophet called the end times exactly the times of Mahdi. Didn't he? If we take other religions, let's say Christianity, the end times are the times of whom? The Comforter. And if we proceed this way to other prophets, we will see the same thing, right?
Right.
Let's say epithets are different, but the essence is one, the end times. Yet, most interestingly, I think this information has remained somewhere and our friends will be able to find it and confirm what I'm going to tell you. The Prophet Muhammad said that during the end times, the times of Imam Mahdi, people will die. Well, as soon as he came, whether he is hidden or not hidden, he has come, he is in this world, whether people see him or not, but he is here, and he communicates with everyone. The important point is that he communicates with everyone. And at this time, people will die, some sooner, some later, even before the moment when, let's say, people build a creative society, as the Prophet said, when Islam triumphs throughout the world, that doesn't matter. Or until the apocalypse or the judgment day comes. So, the most interesting thing the Prophet said was that in the times of Imam Mahdi, when people die, Allah will meet them and ask, "What did Imam Mahdi tell you about the Prophet Muhammad?" And that will determine where a person will be, next to the Prophet, in Allah's world, or in hell, with double punishment. That's the most curious point.
Very interesting.
Yes. And it's true. But what does it mean he told you? After all, he's supposed to say, based on this, he's supposed to tell everyone as it turns out, right?
Right.
And most interestingly, he's supposed to tell everyone something about the Prophet Muhammad himself.
Something that everyone will hear. Also, regarding people who will recognize Mahdi, it is said that they are those who have come to know Allah through the best learning. It is those who will be able to recognize.
Right. To know Allah through the best learning precisely means spiritual perception through love. There is no other way. Another way is, again, through letters, on paper. Have you really come to know? You've read but you don't know. Let's say, if I read something about the city, or even if I watch a movie about that city, would I really know what is there? No, my friend. In order to know, I should go there and see. The same is with Allah. In order to come to know Him, one should love Him and should be worthy of at least getting in touch with that world. That's the point.
Yes, and to help, so to say, the Prophet left a prayer which is recommended to be recited when Imam Mahdi will be in hiding so that it would help people recognize him. If I may, I'll read it out.
It's interesting.
O Allah, let me know you, for if I do not know you, how can I know your messenger? O Allah, let me know your messenger, for if I do not know him, how can I know the Imam you have appointed? O Allah, let me know the Imam you have appointed, for if I do not know him, I will fall into delusion and deviate from your religion. O the one who converts the hearts, make my heart be turned only to you.
Great.
That's a good prayer.
It seems to me it is also very important that here we can again trace a thread that for a person who recognizes Mahdi, it is sort of tantamount and equivalent to recognizing the Prophet or vice versa. There is an interesting and very important point that the Prophet once said that during the common big prayer he saw what he hadn't seen before, that he saw heaven and hell. If I may, I will read out this moment. At this place I have just seen everything that I was never shown before, including heaven and hell. A revelation has been sent down to me that in your graves you will undergo an ordeal similar or close to that of Masih ad-Dajjal. Each of you will be approached and asked, "What do you know about this man?" And a believer or a convinced one will answer, "This is Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, who came to us with clear evidence and guidance, and we believed, responded to him, and followed him." Thereafter the angels will tell that person, "Sleep, being righteous, for we know that you believed in him." As for a hypocrite or a doubter, that one will say, "I do not know, I only heard people saying something, and I said the same thing."
Friends of mine, this, what Tatiana has just read, once in the past, before Umar laid his hand on that, had sounded as I told you before.
Wow.
The Prophet would have never said so. Even, I will tell you, by the ordinary key phrases, and you, as smart and thinking people, will have to understand it. Firstly, angels don't sleep. Secondly, those who get into heaven do not stay in graves. Those who are faithful to Allah and the Prophet do not stay in graves. Thirdly, only the one who serves Satan doesn't know this. Here, we can clearly see the style that has been altered. And there is a key point here on which Umar, who wasn't a stupid man, but was a slave of shaitan, simply made a mistake, not even knowing how the alive ones behave, while the Prophet did know the Prophet is alive, whereas Umar is dead. He's a slave. He said,
What an important grain.
read the end once again. Please.
Thereafter, the angels will tell him, "Sleep, being righteous, for we knew that you believed in him."
It's the same as if a righteous person would sincerely serve Allah throughout his life and follow in the footsteps of the Prophet himself. And afterwards, when the moment comes, angels sent by Allah or from the Prophet himself would come to him and say, "You've done well. Sleep in your grave. You have deserved the death." Can you imagine such nonsense? And there is plenty of such nonsense. By this kind of nonsense, even a person who's an erudite can find
A grain.
and can also see chaff. But if a person holds the keys in his hands and spiritually works on himself, then lies are visible everywhere, even if a person is not an erudite. Yet do you know what the greatest erudition is? The greatest erudition. Everybody spoke about it, by the way.
God's wisdom.
And what is God's wisdom?
To know God, to love him.
To love God.
Exactly, God's love, right. That's the greatest. God's love. Because all our knowledge that we accumulate here remains with our consciousness. Why? Because when getting into the spiritual world, a person discovers what is unknown to shaitan, meaning something much greater. He knows everything. And the experience and practice which he has accumulated and which seem valuable here are nothing for him. If we compare it, there is nothing to compare it with. Even if I say, imagine a little tiny grain of sand, the smallest grain of sand you can find on this planet, and compare it with the universe, then the universe will be that knowledge you will gain in the spiritual world. Meanwhile, your greatest erudition which a human can comprehend in this world is like that very smallest grain of sand that can only be found on this planet. Well, I would be mistaken to make such a comparison, because that grain of sand would be enormous. Is nothing. The greatest knowledge and learning we can acquire here are nothing compared to what a human gains by becoming an angel in the spiritual world. Everything that is here is mortal. The mortal cannot possess the truth, while the truth is what creates everything. That's the point. And the Creator knows everything. That is why it is believed that God knows everything. And that is why they say someone who comes from God must know all the languages, the mathematics, the errors, and all the commas made up by people. Wait, a simple question. Who made those errors? By putting commas, people did. In what world? In the mortal world. However, should someone being in the spiritual world actually study the mortal world? A simple question. After all, these are the affairs of the dead, not the alive. And therein lies the key answer. When the brothers of that very Prophet Muhammad tried to ask him difficult questions, when the Prophet came and for the first time began to describe what had happened to him, what knowledge Jabrail was bringing to him, and what metamorphoses were happening to him, they laughed at him and said, "If you are like that, tell us something in other languages." Right? In the same way, people tried to mock Jesus Christ and everyone else. Shaitan divided a single language into many, and thus showed off his erudition.
Divide and conquer.
Shaitan's principle. Well, if we even go back to that very Peter or to that very Ummah, what did they do? The first thing they started doing was to divide. What for? In order to strengthen their own power. And what did that lead to? They altered everything as much as they could. In fact, the greed of one person, such pridefulness and insatiability, doomed all of humanity to exist in the consumerist format for many centuries. If all who heard the Prophet were as faithful as Ali, we would have lived in a different world. It would have been a beautiful world. Then even Mahdi would have nothing to do here, except, coming and rejoicing together with everyone. Then it would make sense. What's the point of him coming now, tell me, except maybe for manifesting himself as in the first option, for what people deserved? Yet still, there are the other ones, those who, as the Prophet said,
who hear the call.
Who hear the call.
Right, and who hold both the sun and the moon in their hands, and love of Allah in their hearts. For their sake, this hasn't happened. Yet what will happen next? It is people's choice. It all depends on each and every one of us. Yes. Friends, it is us who create the future. We are free in our choice. Otherwise, shaitan decides for us. Thus we choose what the future will be like, the way shaitan writes it for us, or the way we ourselves want to create it. That future which we will leave to our children. What is good about the future that awaits us now according to shaitan's scenario? Tell me, please. Well, some people will say everything is fine, even for Muslims, because a lot of countries are thriving nowadays, right? But I'll tell you, very soon we will see the sunset of the one who ascended into the sky. We will see what they have built crumbling. We will see their pridefulness coming to naught. We will see them rejoicing, even at a simple seat on the cheapest bus, after they get out of their Rolls Royces. And we will see that, not to mention other things. But something different can also happen. Again, everything depends on us. When the same splendor and the same beauty will spread throughout the world, and it all depends on us, whether we will be selfish or we will be worthy to hear, behold, and recognize the one whom Allah has sent at the request of the Prophet himself. After all, the Prophet, in caring for you, in caring for your children, in caring for this world, still during his lifetime, he pleaded with Allah for leniency. He said that shaitan is strong, but people are also worthy, for there is love in them. People can do it. They can, but shaitan is strong. So the Prophet prayed supplication for the entire humanity for a very long time. After all, he never asked anything for himself. He asked only one thing, but always, every time he went to bed, to be among the worthy. That's all he asked for himself, and now he is the worthiest among the worthiest. He is beside Allah, and he is waiting there for each and every one of us, all of us, and you too, my friend. But it's up to you. Are you ready for this or not? Everyone will say they are ready. But who in them will say that? That's the point.
Igor Mikhailovich, currently it is such a period and such a time when everyone must take responsibility, because responsibility for irresponsibility, we already understand that this will be a very serious test for people. And from the bottom of my heart, I just want to call on all of us to unite. Let us unite, let us feel God's world, and let us make the dream of the Prophet Muhammad come true. Let us be those who follow the Prophet, those who follow Mahdi. those who hear this call of the truth, and be the people who, together with Imam Mahdi, will build a new world and purify the truth. And a new and interesting scenario will unfold, which we have not been told about yet. Therefore, we would really like to see a new world, a world full of love and equality, a world of brotherhood. Let us unite.
Let's first learn to love each other at least. Right?
Right.
Therefore, my friends, thank you for being with us. We're sorry for such a conversation. Well, you know, everything comes in due time. And sometimes the time comes to tell the truth, even the truth that is already known to everyone, but voiced only in private or in a narrow circle. Shaitan is strong. But can there be anyone stronger than Allah? So friends, let's start with learning to love one another, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Igor Mikhailovich.
Thank you very much, Igor Mikhailovich.
Thank you, friends. Thank you for being here. Thank you.